Welcome to the American Academy of Grief Counseling's video on counseling with Asian Americans. And this is a continuation of our multicultural competencies on looking at various cultures within the United States and the West and how counselors can better be more diverse in their counseling, especially with those in areas of grief in itself. Now, Asian migrants, whether they're of the first generation or later Asians who were born within the United States or the Western world, are made up of a broad and diverse background. It's not just only the Orient, but they also come from India and numerous Pacific islands. So there is a diverse amount of cultures with different values and views. Most Asians express religious belief in Taoism, Hinduism, or Buddhism, but many also express beliefs in Islam as well as Christianity. Many Asians also have fled communist regimes, wars, and genocide, coming to the United States as migrants, as refugees, or looking to find peace from their homeland, which is devastated by war due to these revolutions. In the United States, though, many Asian Americans have suffered various prejudices, especially those throughout the Orient, especially during World War II, where many of them were forced to go into encampments, and as well as even recently during COVID-19, when COVID was considered the Chinese flu. So these types of prejudices and types of discriminations have caused issues for many Asian Americans within the United States. Asian Americans, ironically, also suffer from what we refer to as a positive stereotype, where many of them are seen as individuals without issues. They have high academic standards, so every Asian is intelligent or smart or gets good grades. These types of things can cause problems, especially for other Asians who might not have good grades, and they are constantly put up to that blueprint. So those are some of the broad view ideas of the Asian American makeup. Now, if we look at their various values, we have to be careful again not to overgeneralize due to different levels of acculturization within an individual. Some individuals, obviously, as we've talked about in previous videos, may be more well adjusted to the Western culture, and they might not adhere as much to some of their values from Asia itself or the home nation, while others may very much well hold on to the old traditions. So it's important first to identify that, as with any cultural group. In general, though, most Asians have a culture that is very collectivist. Collectivist means simply that they put family and society above the works of the individual. Hence, decisions on schooling, marriage, and life are usually a collective conversation within the family. Some key virtues are modesty and humility, especially when speaking about oneself. Families tend to treat others outside more kindly when having them over or speaking with them, and they hold their family itself to a higher standards than these particular strangers because, again, what the family looks like, the family's portrayal within the social structure is more important than the individual itself. Within that, it's very important to hold face, so to speak. So harmony over discord, image and value above things that might be considered scandalous are many times swept under the rug to maintain that image. And so hence we can see problems within individuals within these hierarchical family structures that are collectivist who might not meet the norm and might have these internal problems. In addition to modesty and humility and image, respect is also a key attribute within Asian values, as well as a balance of life with the utilization of meditation within many of the Eastern religions themselves. So these are some key values. Now, taking these values into concern, we as Western counselors may have some particular things that we want to really focus on when dealing with those within the Asian culture. Those within the Asian culture have strong respect for authority, and they respect the value and the opinions of authority. Many times they come into counseling not so much looking for healing, but they look for an answer, so to speak. They're looking for guidance and direction instead of options. And so that's something that needs to be sorted out within the counseling sessions, that counselors don't direct and dictate what is to occur, but they guide individuals in a way where there's options for self-healing, self-exploration itself. Sometimes Asians prefer to have a racial match as a counselor, but other times it's more of an importance that the individual they're coming to is very well trained and respected within the field so that they can trust that source of authority. So, in turn, it's important then that the counselor has cultural competence in dealing with Asian communities. Now, we discussed that acculturation can be greater or less within particular individuals. Obviously, families that are still very much Asian in terms of their culture, maybe some more Oriental type values where it's very collectivist, then it's going to be a situation of individuals who are either A, going to be very much uh, subservient to the family, or B, you're going to have some who want to diverge from the particular family itself. So, in particular, if you have a client who is looking for guidance and they turn to their family for a lot of affirmation of what to do, that is not something that should be seen as a negative. Instead, it is part of their cultural values. While someone in the West who is considered to be more independent of family opinions, this might be a sign of a pathological type of way of thinking in particular. But it is important to understand where your particular client stands in terms of their family and acculturation itself. Now, of course, some may be looking to break away from the family in terms of what the family wants them to do, and they might be more individualistic, and this can cause internal stressors for them. In addition, the power of shame and loss within the family. Many of those individuals within Asian families might feel an obligation to do this or to do that, even though it's not what they want to do, to give pride to their family. Or they may have done something that might not be considered as drastic for a Westerner, but for the image of the family, what they did, maybe it's a moral action of some type, what they did might be a greater issue. And this type of tension between what they did and the shame it might bring on their family might create bigger problems during the counseling session. It's also important to understand of the positive stereotype, which we mentioned earlier. Many Asian Americans are expected to excel in academics and to perform superior to other individuals, but this isn't always the case. Obviously, there's going to be individuals who are not as good in school academically, and when they're held to these standards, they might have their self-image negatively affected within that. And of course, again, also besides these internal stressors, it's important to understand all of the historical oppression and external stressors that are dealt with by anyone who's a migrant, but especially those in particular from Asia itself, who are coming with a lot of baggage in terms of fleeing oppressive communist regimes and then coming to the United States and having be looked at as inferior in particular, especially with the collective communal wounds from World War II when they were put into encampments because of the U.S. policy regarding Japanese Americans, or anyone for that matter who looked to be Oriental, to be a potential spy for the Japanese during World War II. And of course, this was a horrible event that occurred. And this is passed on from one generation to the next. And again, we can see it with the latest COVID outbreak in 2020, where a lot of Chinese Americans and any Oriental American would be looked at with suspicion because of COVID itself, and how various fringe party groups tried to call it a Chinese virus and so forth. And this did cause distress, and it did cause problems in the social sphere. And I'm sure that this also in 2020 would cause many Asian Americans in counseling also to have various external stressors that were bothering them. So we are the American Institute of Healthcare Professionals. We offer a grief counseling certification as well as a grief diversity specialist program. And this particular program is for those who are already grief certified, but would like to be more culturally competent in dealing with groups of different cultural groups and the grief and loss, how it affects them. Our number is 330-652-7776, and our email is info@aihcp.org. Our reference is from the Peterson text, which is Counseling Across Cultures. Please like and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'd like to thank you for listening, and have a good day.